Living Waters presents On the Box.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the edition of On the Box. Brett Stone's in the house!
It's great to be here.
How are you, Brett?
Good.
Yeah. What you working on today?
Well, we're missing an IT at the moment, so I'm having to fill a few roles that I don't normally do.
We are looking for an IT professional. I believe we put that out in a blast.
Yeah, about a month ago, I think.
You know how best an IT person could contact us, who they should contact here at the ministry if they're interested in that position? The grown-ups watching upstairs. Do I hear his footsteps? Is he running down? What are you doing? What are you doing? Put that out over here! But it's public. Huh?
Yeah, it's public.
It's public.
We mailed it out.
Email us at Living Waters at email@livingwaters.com if you are an IT professional and you might want to join the Living Waters team. We are very reserved and subdued here, so we're looking for that personality type. Mark, how you doing?
Doing good. I just got up and into the chat room because I was having some internet problems. But I just posted in there, doing good. I've been working on a little Christmas video so we can show it at our little Christmas party. Oh. Yeah, so I'm going through, taking out all the pictures and videos of Tony that I can find and throwing those on the floor of the director's floor.
Thank you so much. Have you guys seen the menu for the Christmas party?
Yes.
Dude!
Yes.
We can't tell you what we're eating for Christmas dinner because the atheists will claim that we're rich and hoarding money and doing all kinds of nefarious things. But we're going to eat well.
Yes.
And the dessert plate is going to be full of dessert.
Can't wait.
Yeah? Are you going?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm missing.
I probably should ask that before the show. Yeah, we're going to get to go. I think we're going to get the award for furthest drive.
Oh. Yeah, the new location is actually better for me. Yeah.
Guess what happened yesterday?
Secret.
Guess what happened yesterday? Richard Dawkins, friend of the ministry, loves Ray Comfort, although he is an atheist.
Yes.
He is promoting 180.
Intentionally?
Intentionally, on purpose, by himself.
I appreciate that.
Take a look. No, that's not Richard Dawkins. That's not Richard Dawkins either.
When I was lecturing at the University of Miami, I was approached by a little boy, must have been about 7 or 8 after the lecture, and I thought, how nice, a child has come to my lecture. And he handed me a DVD, which he said he'd been asked to give me.
No.
And it turned out that he'd been asked to give it to me by Ray Comfort, who will be known to many people as the Banana Man. And I looked at it, and I was rather astonished to read the message on it. It was a very charming dedication to me, and I'll show it. He would like to hear my thoughts, Thorts, on this.
Now, something to clear up here. Mr. Richard Dawkins, who puts himself off as a relatively intelligent person, although he does ascribe to the notion that it's possible that aliens brought life to our planet, apparently he knows very little about the common vernacular of those who live in New Zealand. The way that Ray spelt out the word thoughts, as it was written out, is the way it sounds when you're speaking, when you're from New Zealand and you're saying that word. We get on Ray all the time about how he says car and different things. And Ray has been writing that word thoughts like that as long as he can remember. So while Richard Dawkins thought there was an opportune moment for him to take a pot shot at Ray, Mr. Dawkins, what you have done is you have expanded the influence of 180 by taking your notoriety, taking 50 seconds of your time to hold up the 180 DVD for the world to see. We thank you, Mr. Dawkins.
Thank you.
We thank you. And there might be a fruit basket coming your way yet again. I don't know.
Oh, that'll be good. Full of bananas. Yeah.
So anyways.
Yes.
I just wanted to show that real quick.
Yeah, it's funny. I think from what I understand, Ray did that on purpose, though, wasn't it?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the young man he was talking about, a young boy named Caleb, we'll leave it at that. Caleb and his family went with us to Israel. And probably a year or two ago, maybe not that long, Caleb stood up and asked Mr. Dawkins a question there on the University of Florida campus when he was there at another time speaking, and so Mr. Dawkins runs into problems every time he runs into Caleb, who's a bright young man, very gregarious, out there sharing the gospel with people. So way to go, Caleb! Good job.
Yes, good job.
All right. OA with RA.
What?
OA with RA. You don't. Oh, you didn't watch the show yesterday, did you?
I know.
You didn't watch the show yesterday. We started a new segment yesterday. You didn't watch the show.
I work and watch, so.
Brad, I didn't watch the show either, so if it's any consolation.
And he was here.
That's true.
And he was here. Yeah, we started a new segment yesterday. OA with RA. RA representing R.A. Torrey. There he is, the man himself. And he wrote an article on open-air preaching that has just a plethora of points substantiating open-air preaching and giving good information and tips for open-air preaching. So Ray had the idea, hey, let's take this article and let's go over it point by point, take a point a day, and talk about it a little bit. So
Great.
The next point on R.A. Torrey's list is open-air meetings. Open-air preaching is portable. You can carry them around. It would be very difficult to carry a church or a mission building with you, but there is no difficulty about carrying an open-air meeting with you. You can get an open-air meeting where you could, by no possibility, get a church, mission hall, or even a room. You can have open-air meetings in all parts of the city and all parts of the country. Open-air is portable. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely, and I'm thankful the amplification is also portable.
Yeah, you didn't have amplification back in his day. Now, when you were living in Texas, how long were you out in Texas?
About 6 years.
About 6 years. And you were part of a real active team.
Yeah.
Did you keep open-air equipment in your car with you at all times, looking for that opportunity? Or?
Well, unfortunately, I depended on the equipment of others more often, because almost every time I went out, somebody had equipment.
Oh, okay.
So I used theirs.
Yeah, I always keep something in my trunk. I've got my prayer stand in the trunk. I've got my open-air box in the trunk. I got my sound system in the trunk, all in a tiny little Corolla, because I never know when I'm going to run into a situation where there's a long line, 31 cent night at Baskin-Robbins, and there's a line of people standing out there, and, thanks to Ray in this ministry, every time I see a long line, I see an opportunity for an open air, as opposed to, ooh, what can I get in that line, or, oh, they're going to get in my way. So, yeah. Mark, what do you think about the portability of open-air preaching?
Yeah, I mean, wherever you find a place, if there's people there, they need to hear the gospel. So since we can't construct 4 walls, a ceiling, and a floor, well, then we go out and we create church as the church wherever we can find it. So if there's people there, then they need to hear the gospel. You know that you're an evangelist or trying to do the work of one if you see a big group of people and all of a sudden you're reaching for your back pocket to grab those tracts, or seeing if you have the amplification in your the trunk of your car. So absolutely, I love it. I think that we need to get even more creative in the way we open air and the way we hand out tracts. In fact, I was driving on the way to work today, and I was thinking to myself, there are some very creative people out there on Facebook that are open-air preaching and that are handing out gospel tracts and that are sharing the gospel during the different holidays. I was thinking of John Speed. He has a very creative way to hand out tracts. He grabs a whole bunch of what are they called? Index cards that are blank. Right, he stands out on the corner.
He did this at an academy.
And he just starts handing out blank index cards, and that's all he's doing until finally people come back and they go, "Hey, what is this?" And then he uses it to get into the gospel, and he says something along the lines of, "Well, that's what you need to do in order to get to hell." I go, well, there's nothing on here. Exactly. You don't need to do anything to get to hell. Are you interested in knowing what you need to do in order to get to heaven? So I love the creativity out there. And in the open air, especially, if you see a group of people that have congregated together for whatever reason, man, use it as an opportunity to share the gospel and get up there to start off with a verse, perhaps, and then take it off from there. So that's what I did. In fact, on Friday night, I didn't have a clue where to begin in the open air, so I basically just shared my testimony, and that turned into about 30 minutes of me preaching the gospel. So
I remember John Speed doing that at one of the last academies. He was out on Hollywood Boulevard, passing out these blank, and they weren't even index cards. They were cut up pieces of paper.
Yeah.
I said, what are you doing? They said, watch. And he starts handing them out. Sure enough, someone comes back and says, hey, there's nothing on this.
Yep.
What does this mean?
Yeah, we did that in Texas.
Good. Yeah, it was a neat reminder. All right, this next story, we're about to chastise a few Christians out there. I know this is
Gently,
near and dear
lovingly.
to Mark's heart because of all the time he spent working in the restaurant industry.
Yes.
Waiter's phony $10 tip includes a religious lesson. A $10 bill, and this comes from, where did this come from? Dailyfinance.com is where I found the article. $10 bill is a joyful sight for a server, but when one waiter went to retrieve such a note out from under a diner's plate recently, he reportedly noticed something curious. The tip it provided wasn't monetary, but it took the form of advice. Quote, some things are better than money, end quote. It said on the back, quote, like your eternal salvation. That was bought and paid for by Jesus going to the cross, end quote. The waiter, who makes $2.65 base pay an hour, didn't take well to getting so self-righteously stiffed. He posted photographs of the scene to the social newspaper Reddit and wrote, quote, P.S., I have never been more atheist, end quote. And, quote, that's not very Christian-like behavior, end quote, wrote one commentator. And you know what? I agree with the commentator. Boy, if you are out there handing out gospel tracts, and fortunately, the money tract that was handed out, it wasn't a Living Waters tract. I don't even know. They have pictures here in the article. I have no idea who produced this particular tract. Don't know what it says on the tract, but I can tell by looking at it, it's not a Living Waters $1 million bill, thankfully. But if you're out there and you're handing out tracts and you're doing it in a restaurant, don't you ever put down a money tract in lieu of a tip. If you're going to leave any kind of gospel tract at a restaurant for a server, that better include not an adequate tip, but a good tip, regardless of the service. Even if you got lousy service, if you're going to put the gospel down on that table, you better show some love to that person too by recognizing that they're working hard for a living. You're sitting there enjoying your dinner. Your tip is part of their income. And so you should be generous with your money, especially if you're going to leave a gospel tract with that tip on that table. Don't you ever stiff a waiter or waitress with a gospel tract instead of a tip. Shame on you, whoever did that.
True.
Brad,
Shame.
what do you think?
Shame on them. No, I agree completely. In fact, sometimes I even shy away from the money tracts altogether when I'm at a restaurant, only because when I think about the server getting their first eye on the tip and they see $1 million, or what looks like a large currency, I don't want them to, be disgruntled when they all realize it's not a tip; it's actually a tract. So sometimes we have plenty of alternatives to money tracts, and that's oftentimes where I lean into. But also, definitely include a tip along that, because I think as much as the guy's right in that the gospel is better than the tip, I think the language he understands, to show that I care, is in the tip I give. So.
Right. Yeah, and one of the things I do use money tracts in restaurants. Typically, I'm paying with a debit card, and so what I do is I always make sure to get my waiter or waitress's name, and then on the back of the tract, I write their name, and I write a short note thanking them for the service and sign my name, and then I put which is on the back side of the tract. So I put the back side of the tract face up, so when they see it, they may not even immediately recognize it as money, and they see that there's something handwritten on it, and I always put that underneath the receipt that shows what kind of tip I gave them. That's the first thing they're going to look at. Did they give me a tip? So they're going to see the tip. They're going to see that it's over the typical percentage, and then they'll look underneath it, and then they'll find it. Mark. What now? I remember you in the academy, Mark. You said something that is a common belief among waiters and waitresses about Christians in restaurants. What was that?
Yeah, well, nobody wants to work on Sundays. I worked in the restaurant business for close to 10 years, in every imaginable position. And nobody wanted to work on Sundays because Christians, religious folk, are known as being very bad tippers and leaving little pieces of paper telling them how they can find everlasting life for free. So apparently these Christians want to be good stewards of their money and not give money to heathen while they're out there. So people hated working on Sundays. And I saw it firsthand. I agree, man, I hated working on Sundays. When you're trying to save up money, which is what I did for college, I worked 1 year and I tried to work as hard as I could to save up as much money as I could to go away to college. So people hated it, and I hated it. And I had to defend these people who claimed to be Christians, and they would leave little pieces of paper called gospel tracts. Now, I've changed up a little bit. I will purposefully do two things. One is, if I only have a limited amount of money, well, then I'm going to order a limited amount of food in order to leave a very generous tip. And I found out that the best tippers they tend to be people in my age or couples. Businessmen leave horrible tips throughout the week, and Christians leave the worst tips on Sundays. So my challenge to a Christian is, hey, make sure that you not live to eat, but you eat to live. So you don't necessarily have to go for all the great things that can be found on the menu if indeed you only have a little bit amount of money to leave as a tip. Now, I take it a step further than that. I will even pray at times for bad service. Bad service, that's right. So when the server doesn't deserve a tip, when he comes over and drops off my bill, I don't have any problem looking over at him and saying, hey, Jimmy, you and I both know this just isn't your day. In fact, you don't deserve a good tip. But I'm going to go above and beyond and give you a great tip. And this is going to explain to you why. A little message on the back. It's about Christianity, and it describes this thing called grace. It's unmerited favor to the infinitely ill-deserving. I won't give him the technical term, but I'll let him know, hey, you didn't deserve a good tip, but I want to give you a good tip, even though you didn't deserve it, because that's what Christ did for me 2,000 years ago. He gave me something I didn't deserve, and I'm offering you something that you don't deserve, and that's a good tip. Hey, have a great day. Yeah. Or if it's before I eat, I might even look over at the server and say, hey, in a minute we're going to pray for our food. Is there anything we can pray for you about before we eat? And just get them... that usually get caught off guard. I've had a server once or twice say, hey, you can pray that I get good tips today because I need it. And rightfully done, and we did so. So we need to leave good tips.
That's right. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, Brad, you mentioned that you don't typically use money tracts in restaurants, that there are other kinds of tracts. We got a testimony in recently about our Round to It tract. Why don't you share that?
Yeah. It says, I recently ordered your Round to It tracts, and tonight I handed out 4 of them to people standing outside a bowling alley, and then 10 total to all the people sitting inside a McDonald's, and then 1 to a cashier who I just happened to know but never got a chance to witness to, plus about 10 more for her to hand out to her coworkers. I guess I just wanted to thank you guys for coming out with some of the easiest tracts to hand out. The Round to It's now have been one of my favorite tracks to hand out.
Now, have you used this one? I've never used it.
No, it's actually one of my favorite tracks.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, by chance, yeah.
So what kind of transition would you use in handing that tract out? I mean, did you get one of these, or is there something in particular you say when you're handing that one out?
My favorite is here, and it often gets taken. Yeah. But that particular track, I often will get asked more often than others, what is it?
Oh, okay.
I think sometimes think it's a coaster maybe or something, but
so you say, like, when you get around to it, read the back, or?
No, I say, you always say to yourself, one day you're going to get right with God when you get around to it. And now that you have one, you have no excuse. And so, and then I just use it as an opportunity just to lead into a one-on-one, which is why I like the tracks, because I think we all connect to a certain type of track.
Yeah,
and
all of our favorites.
Right, and with that particular one, it usually has led to a lot of conversations for me.
Now, Mark, have you used the Round to It track before?
I have. One of my favorites are the $1 Million Bill Zone. I love giving these out in restaurants.
We heard something about that recently, yeah. Hey, Mark, we got any questions coming into the chat room?
Yeah, there are a few good questions coming inside there.
Love it.
What kind of items do you need to pack inside your backpack when you're going out to share your faith? So what should be inside your arsenal there? Should you just have some gospel tracts in your Bible, or should there be other items in there as well?
So what do you put in your backpack? You were telling me that you've got a backpack that you've had for how many years now? Same backpack?
8 years, 9 years. Yeah.
All right, how do you stock your backpack? What do you usually put in it? Besides lunch, dinner,
yeah,
snacks.
it's starting to actually get pretty worn out now. So, but I usually keep a couple spare Bibles
It's a
on
hint,
me.
right? Christmas hint.
Yeah, it was a
Add that
$5
to the list?
backpack, so you can raise the price.
To say that.
Oh well, I bought it, so.
Anyways, what's in your bag?
Anyway, I keep a couple Bibles usually because in case I talk to someone who doesn't have a Bible. I keep a variety of tracts. I even like to keep a few extras because there are times I'm out with people and they run out, and I keep some follow-up material like why Christianity and some of the other materials that we have for that kind of follow-up.
Yeah, I do much the same.
Mm-hmm.
I carry Gospels of John with me. I do have some of the.
Those best cup sheet CDs?
I carry a few of
Yeah,
those.
mhm.
Yeah, just in case you run into a Christian's asking, "Hey, what are you doing?" And wow, I've never seen anyone hand out a tract before. And why don't you listen to this message? Just will tell you why we're out here doing
Right.
this. And so yeah, the 2-in-1 CD is good. I carry around Gospels of John. I've got some of the Gideon New Testaments are nice and small, and so I'll carry those. I don't carry too many full Bibles with me just because there's not that much room in the backpack. Maybe I got a small portable sound system. I might have that with me. Hand sanitizer.
Yeah. Bottle of water.
bottle of water.
Kitchen sink.
Gospel tracts. As a retired deputy sheriff, there are a few other things I might have in my bag from time to time that most people won't carry.
Yeah. I literally do have like a dip in my shoulder now from having carried that pack
Really?
overloaded over the years.
I'd ask you to show us, but no one.
Yeah, I get watch it. No.
So now, Mark, I've seen you with like a shoulder sling, kind of a small bag.
Yeah.
What do you keep in that?
I've got my Bible. I've got an iPod that could cross-reference over to different things that I need in
that's a good
case
idea.
somebody wants to talk about the deity of Christ or something else. But I also have the 2-in-1 CDs and Save Yourself Some Pain. I
That's
think if
awesome.
you're going to go out there, you should definitely have the 2-in-1 CDs and Save Yourself Some Pain booklets for when people want to make that profession of faith. So those are the two things that I stick with the most. Save Yourself Some Pain and then the 2-in-1 CDs.
Yeah, I'd also suggest carrying information about your church, especially if you're doing evangelism in your area. We started attending. We're now members of a church a little closer to home, and one of the great joys about that is now being able to invite people to my church that when I'm sharing the gospel in my community. My church is just a few miles down the road. Why don't you join us on Sunday? And so having information about the church, I carry some of our Living Waters business cards. I don't give out my personal cell phone number to strangers. I wouldn't advise doing that. But
I give your phone number out all the time.
that's why I had to change it.
I
Yeah.
can't give mine.
No, but certainly my office number and my office email. Look, if you have any questions about what we talked about, here's how you can get a hold of me. So, all right, what else is going on in the chat room, Mark?
Really quick, how do people get little New Testaments like the Gideon New Testaments? Where do they go to get those at, Tony?
Yeah, I don't think you can actually go and get them. I mean, you need to know a Gideon. Gideons are very particular about who they give their Bibles out to hand out. They want to make sure that the Bibles are going to the lost, being used in an appropriate way. So you really need to know someone who is with that organization to get those Bibles. But if you look online, there are all kinds of organizations out there. The International Bible Society, IBS, they have small versions of the Bible, Gospels of John, English and Spanish. There are some places I know you can get the English Standard Version of the Bible, the whole New Testament, for about 50 cents a copy online. And if you email me and ask, Tony, where is that? I'm not sure. But if you just do a little research online, you could find places that have compact Bibles relatively cheap.
Very good.
I think we even sell paperback, don't we? A little New Testament.
Yes, we
Yes,
do. Yes,
we do.
Yeah.
Livingwaters.com. There you go.
There's a couple quick questions in here that I think we could answer at the small allotted time that we have left. Hey, what do you do when the person you're witnessing to says, hey, I don't want to hear it anymore. Leave me alone. Go your way. What do you do?
Say, Mark?
All right. Give it some thought.
There you go.
It's real simple. If they don't want to hear, then I think the gospel's too precious to give to them.
Yeah.
So it's the same way when I'm witnessing to someone and they're so prideful and I haven't even gotten to the gospel yet. I have no problem walking away without giving them the gospel and leaving them with the law, leaving them condemned, because I trust that God, as the author and finisher of all people's faith, is going to complete the work which he started. Next question. I'm so sad when I see tracts torn up and littered down on the ground. Should I reach down and pick those up before I leave a place that I've been witnessing to at night?
I say for a couple of things. First, why are you upset? Don't be upset. The reason that gospel tract is torn up is because the person turned it over, started to read, and was immediately convicted about what they were reading. They were either convicted about their sin or they're exhibiting their hatred for God. Either way, that was a successful witnessing encounter because they were confronted with the truth. They are already by nature without excuse according to God's word, but they're going to stand and give an account for tearing up that tract. So when I see a tract thrown on the ground, it tells me that tract had an impact. It likely had an impact on someone. So don't be upset about that. As far as picking them up, I think it would depend. If it's a place where you're at, like you guys go to the same place every Friday night, I go to Third Street Promenade most Saturdays. If I see a lot of tracts littering the ground in an area where I'm at regularly, I think just to be a good witness and a good steward to the business owners and the people who frequent that area, I think I might pick them up. But if it's just a couple laying around, I'm going to say, you know what, someone else is going to pick that up. I mean, there are a number of testimonies that I've heard over the years where people found a gospel tract on the ground, took it home, read it, and came to faith in Christ. What do you think? Well,
I have actually picked up, not the torn ones, but the perfectly good ones, the ones that are near me, and rehanded them out, so... but it's like you said, if they came across it and picked it up, it has the same value.
Yeah. All right, Mark, you want to add something to that real quick before we go, or do we have time for one more, maybe, in 38 seconds?
Oh, boy. Somebody just simply says, hey, don't forget to tip when we were talking about tipping, right? Don't forget to tip busboys. I've actually found that to be very profitable if you want to get a very good meal. I'd look over at the busboy and I'd say, hey, can you refill my water? Can you get me a side of ranch or whatever it may be, and tip him? He's going to come back more often than your actual server will be. And I think that's great advice.
All right. And with that, once again, from us to you, make sure you leave a good tip for your waiters and waitresses, whether or not you're going to hand out a gospel tract. Certainly, if you're going to give them the gospel, make sure you love them enough to give them a good tip as well. That's our tip for the day. And with that, we are out of time. Until tomorrow, be encouraged, strengthened, and unafraid. Proclaim the gospel. See you tomorrow.
You're full of it! Living Waters presents On the Box.